Knowing how to create row templates in Razorly is probably one of the best investments you can be making when wanting to set up messages easily in Razorly. What we're going to do now is go into our donation receipt and we're going to make some row templates that will be very common for you to be using so you can do these yourselves and save them for all your messages. Now, as we open up our donation receipt, and we can use any email for this, we're going to maximize our add content area so we have a little bit more room to play with. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to actually add a header row, and this is I want to show my logo off rather than the default Razorly. Now, I can actually use the existing one here, so why don't we just select this and we'll select a different image. Down the bottom, I'm going to select my logo. Now, a couple of things going on, it's way too big, so let's just change the auto width, shrink that down to 25%, and that's looking much better. Now, I do want a little bit of spacing up around this. So if I select my row again and focus on the column, I can then add a few more padding options. I'm going to put 30 pixels up the top and I'll put 30 pixels at the bottom. As you can see, it's given me a lot more clean space to work with. Maybe 30 is a bit too much on the bottom, so we'll change that back to 15. Typically, when we're using padding options, working in increments of 15 is really helpful. So that's looking great. I've just got my logo represented nice and clearly there. And if I want this to appear on any other of my templates easily, I'm going to save this as a row template. So let's just hit save. And I'm going to call this header logo and click save. Now on any of my messages, if I wanted to use that row template again, I simply just need to grab it from my row settings and I can drag it anywhere I want. Really that simple. Now, the next one I might want to do is add a little bit of life to this email. And one of the best ways to do that is by adding an image in there. So I'm going to add another row. And in this row, I'm going to add an image. Let's select an image. And you can see now we have the whole image there. Now, a couple of things sort of going wrong with this. First of all, my column doesn't have a background color, so I need to update that. If I go into column settings, background color, and make that white, that's just going to give me the little border I need around that and making sure it's working with the whole lot. Now, one of the things I can be doing if I want to extend this image all the way to the edges, if I select my row, select the image, and go down to general, and you can see here that we do have some padding on this block. If I just double click the 10, change it to 0, and I can now see that the image is extending the entire width of the space. Now that's a great use because one of the times when people open up their emails, having them see a really compelling emotive image can be really good for engagement in the future. So I'm going to save that row as well. Image row. Terrific. Now, one of the other main ones I'm going to be probably utilizing a lot is just a really clean title. So if I want to be doing this, I'm going to actually update the one that's currently in there because I want to turn this into a row template. So I'm going to do heading, title, and we'll leave that there. Now, some of the things to be aware of and to be testing when you actually are using the titles on this is making sure it's coming across really well on desktop and also on mobile. So one of the things I want to be doing, I want to change my font size a little bit. I want to shrink that down to say 36, not making it not so large. On mobile though, I'm going to go over and I'm going to change that down to 28. I think that's looking much better. Now, if I go in here, one of the other things I'll likely want to do is change the line height. And the reason for that is it just creates this different spacing in between if I do have more than one line of text. Typically, 110% is a really good line height to be using. Terrific. That's looking great. I can now put any heading I want into that. So I'll save that down as a row template. Now, one of the main ones I'll be doing a lot is body copy. And so let's create a new row with some body copy. I can use the same row here, but what I'm going to do, rather than sort of messing around with my donation receipt, I'm just going to duplicate this row, and then I'll create a template from that. So the first thing, I'll get rid of all that content. I don't need it. And I'm just going to add some lorem ipsum. I have a little shortcut in which allows me to put some lorem ipsum text in there. Otherwise, you can just grab that from the internet. Put a couple of spaces in there just to make that nice and clean. And now I've got a lovely clean text row. Do notice with the text row, it's got a few things going on here. The first, you've got a little bit of padding at the top and the bottom. And we've also got some padding on the left and right of 60 pixels, which brings it in a little bit there. If we were to say get rid of this, it looks terrible. We do want to make sure we have some spacing around this. So let's go ahead and we'll put that 60 back, which is why the column padding is a really, really helpful little feature. So let's just save that now. And we'll talk text row. Easy. Another main one that you will be using is adding call to action buttons. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this row because I already have it as a template. And I'm going to add a new row. In this one, I'm going to go to my blocks and we're going to add a button. I'm going to drag the button in and I now have a button available. Similar to the image block, I do want to make an update on the column background color. Much better. Now, in regards to buttons, I do have the option to select the auto width, and this I can turn off and have it extend the full width of the row. I typically like longer ones like this because they show a really good call to action, but I'm going to shrink it a little bit to 85% and we'll see how that goes. I can also check my mobile and see whether that's responding there well as well. Now, some of the things I do often do with the buttons is I'll make sure I change the font weight to bold, and you can even make the font a little bit larger if you like, just to make people really see it. But at the moment, I'll leave it at 14. Then I've got a nice little button row I can be using, but I want to add maybe just a little bit of spacing around this. So again, using the column padding, let me have a few more options. Up the top, I'm just going to add 15. And on the bottom, I'm just going to add 15 as well. And it just gives the button a little bit of space to breathe around that too. So nice and simple. Let's just save that as a really neat button row. Now, because a lot of people actually use view their emails on mobile, having a single button for a row does really make sense rather than two buttons side by side. But sometimes you may want that as well. What you could do instead is you could make a two-column row. So what we could look at is here. If we go to rows, we can drag in a two-column row. So I'm going to delete that. We can simply duplicate this button here, drag it up, and we have it in our row there. Now, I did actually want this. I think I've done the wrong row. That's okay. Why don't we get rid of that one? Go to rows. There we go. And then we are going to add a button, blocks, button. Great. And I can duplicate that. I can now drag that across to this side. Bingo. Now, same concepts. What I want to do is make sure we change the background color on this column and on this column as well. And now we have both of our buttons in there. If we want to do the same, where we can change it to bold, change our auto width, so it's maybe 50%. I think that's looking much better. So what I can actually do is get rid of that one, duplicate, and I can now drag that over. Really nice and simple. So I've got two buttons working side by side together. If I simply save this row, two button row. As you can see, you can make a lot of these updates yourself to run to your particular style that you want for your emails. But let's just get rid of that one, and we don't need this one. Now I'm going to add one little last row that I really recommend that you do and set up, because it really is a good one to build trust. If I add a row right down the very bottom here, and what I'm going to do on this row is I'm going to put my logo. So where are we? We're in blocks, image, and we can select our image, change my order width, and I can probably make this maybe 20. I think it's good. We don't want to make this too big. And what I could do is I could really easily put some text if I wanted to on this one. So I could add just a little bit of text underneath. Let's just center that up. Probably make that a little bit smaller, maybe down to like 11. And you can update this text with whatever. It might be copyright information, it could be privacy policy, it could be whatever you want in this text. But one of the last things I do is this little secret. And we're going to use the HTML block here. Now, this is not for the faint-hearted. If you're already new to web development, maybe don't do this. But we do supply this code available for you. What this will do is the HTML allows us to write code in our email, so it's represented really well. And I've got a special little piece of code that I am just going to quickly grab from my database. Now I'm going to grab that code and I'm going to paste it in here. As you can see, all it's doing is putting my social media icons in, which is a really clean way just to show people that you're serious when you're putting your emails in. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of code going on here, and you don't need to understand all of it. Already what we have is the images, which has been brought up with your there. But one of the things you do want to look out for is these little tags here. They're called a href tag, and it's basically going to enable you to add in the links to the different social media accounts you have. You simply paste these over the hash, make sure you get rid of the hash, paste them in there, and away you go. As you can see, these are all broken down into little sections. So you can kind of see on the alt text that this is the Facebook one. If we scroll down a little bit, we have a spacer. We've also seen that we have the alt is X one. So I actually don't want X on my one, so I'm going to get rid of that one. So if I just scroll down between the TD and the TD here, I can get rid of that, and I've got rid of one of them. Now, a really good opportunity is just to make sure you save this code before you do this. So if you do make a mistake, you can update it as well. But I thought I would show you this because it is a helpful one for many people when they want to add a nice little footer on there. The last thing I want to do on this row is I want to add a little bit of padding again. So we'll add 15 up the top, and we'll add 15 down the bottom. And that row you can apply to any and every email, because what it's going to do, it's just going to enable you to earn trust from your users. Do note that I haven't actually put a row background color on this because I don't want this to feel like part of the message up here. I want to feel like a little branded stamp down the bottom. So I can now save this row, and I'm going to call it footer. Now, in any of your emails, you can now be going in and using these row templates that we've just created. If, for example, we open up our fundraiser welcome email and we want to do something similar, we simply just need to open up, go to rows, and I now have all the rows available that I need. Say, for example, my footer row, which I can drag in anywhere I want. And this works across every single of your campaigns globally, which is a really, really neat trick.